Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Sorry that we had some technical issues with our Facebook Live, but we are just rolling with it today. And I'm so excited to be joined with Rachel Bowers. She's the founder of Wollemi Counseling. Did I butcher that?
No, you got it. You got it.
And she is a wonderful supporter of Project NICU. We're just so honored to have her join us this NICU Mental Health Awareness Week to talk about 3 things to help you cope and practice self-care while in the NICU. So Rachel, I'm going to let you take it away and share with our community.
Yeah, sure. So it's Wollemi, and I always let people know what it actually means because when I started the business, I was actually saying it wrong. So I lived in Australia for a year when my son was 2, and that's actually when I got my perinatal mental health certification and started developing my specialty within perinatal mental health. I was a therapist for children, youth, and families for most of my career up until that point. And I had learned about a type of pine tree in Australia called the Wollemi pine. It's actually, I had a friend paint that for me on my wall back there. And it was a pine tree that they had only had fossilized versions of. They believed that it was a tree that was kind of in prehistoric times, but that had been extinct for for hundreds of thousands of years. And in the 1990s, there was a person bushwalking or hiking through a national park in Australia and came across this tree. And he was a pretty good arborist or botanist. And I was like, wow, I've never seen this kind of tree before. It looks a little different. And so when he went to a university and got some specialists. When they came out, they were like, oh my gosh, this is the Wollemi pine. Like, it's been around all these years and we didn't even know. So my tagline for my business is, for my counseling practice, is find yourself again, because I feel like that kind of mimics the feeling of when you enter parenthood. You feel like you kind of lose yourself. It's kind of like this big forest of, like, you don't know how to kind of navigate, and you feel a little lost. So that's kind of the inspiration for the name of my practice.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah, absolutely. So today I'm sharing just three quick tips when it comes to coping in the NICU and even after the NICU. These are all helpful tips. The first one being emotional acceptance. I'll talk a little bit about that. The second being utilizing your support system. And the third one being actual intentional self-care. So when we talk about emotional acceptance, a lot of people think, I just have to accept and express my feelings. But we actually don't know that we have feelings that try to cover up other feelings. So anxiety is something that actually tries to take us away from other feelings. And anxiety, when we experience it, a lot of us have a knee-jerk reaction to trying to control something, maybe obsessing about something, maybe trying to think of all the things and protect ourselves and all the potential worst-case scenarios. We catastrophize, right? That anxiety is usually caused by a deeper underlying feeling that we don't want to experience. And anxiety actually becomes a mechanism of coping. As much as we don't like to think that it is, because nobody really enjoys feeling anxious, we use anxiety as a way to get away from deeper feelings that are more difficult to bear. So I think in the NICU experience, 2 of the primary emotions that are very difficult for us to kind of grapple with, that anxiety might want to cover up, is fear and grief. And fear and anxiety are very different. Fear is really kind of a wrestling with a deeper visceral emotion. A lot of times, if you even think the word fear, you can feel it. You can feel it in your chest. You can feel it in your body, and your muscles tense. Anxiety likes to make us think that we have a lot of control. So anxiety wants to swoop in and go, you don't want to deal with this fear about the future and about what's going on with your baby and how you're going to handle all this. So let's think of all these little things that we can control. And let's think of all the things that we can obsess about, and all kind of get you away from that underlying fear. The second is grief. Grieving the birth experience that we maybe wanted but didn't have, grieving the golden hour. I hear that a lot from the NICU moms I work with. Grieving kind of the normal, quote unquote, postpartum experience, bringing a baby home and having that initial first months where family and friends are coming over. there's so much loss that we have through a NICU experience. So sometimes we don't want to feel that grief either. So we might cover it up with anger or irritability, and we might take our feelings out on other people around us. We might again cover it up with anxiety and trying to find ways to control things. So a simple exercise you can do is when you notice a deep feeling and you kind of have a behavioral response that's like, why am I obsessing about this? Why did I just bite somebody's head off? You can ask yourself, like, what's the underlying feeling? What's the real feeling I'm feeling? And how can I acknowledge and give it space? And it's as simple as just feeling it in your body and acknowledging it with verbalizing it. I am feeling grief. I am feeling loss. I am feeling fear. And the hardest part is sinking into your body and that body experience of the emotion without letting your mind do what it wants to do, which is hijack you out of there and find something else to focus on, right? Because then we're kind of repressing emotions at that point. And we're also losing our sense of self-awareness of what those emotions are doing to our behaviors and our responses. The second tip is utilizing your support system. Now, two important things with support systems. Number one, you have to have a sense of awareness of who in your support system is good for what purpose. We have people that are good at informational support. We have people that are good at showing up with meals. We have people that are good at organizing things for us. Hey, I'll make your 6-week OB/GYN appointment. Don't worry, I'll call them for you. I'll schedule it. Or, oh, hey, I will go home and take care of the dogs for you because they're really good at being able to caretake your home. It's important that we think about who in our support system excels in certain areas of support and really kind of tailoring that support to those people. Number one, because they're good at it, but number two, because then they'll often be willing to do that. There are people in my life that if I said, hey, can you call a doctor, make an appointment for me? They'd be like, I want to talk to somebody on the phone, but I will go over and clean your house, right? So you got to kind of think of who matches up and mobilize your team in a very intentional way. And then the second thing, obviously, is so much easier to say than it is to do, is just asking for help, right? Just asking and picking up the phone and saying, hi, I'm struggling and I need help with. You don't even have to use it in the form of a question. Especially we women, and men can do this too, but I see a lot of women kind of pad their requests. Do you think maybe if you had enough time, could you just, when we start doing that, we're actually kind of like giving them permission more and more to say no, or kind of even like beating around the bush, right? We have to remember that the sense of purpose and gratitude we feel when someone calls on us for help is the same type of feeling that most people have when they help us. So remember that asking for help is not a burden. It's actually strengthening a relationship and giving someone a sense of purpose when they feel incredibly helpless for you. Right?
That's beautiful. Yes, that's such a good reminder too, because a lot of us do struggle with help, asking for help, and
Right.
especially in such a vulnerable state as a parent in the NICU setting. And,
Absolutely.
and so many people don't know how to help us. So just being able to pinpoint and point them to where you need that support, that's wonderful.
Right.
That's a
Yeah. I
great
mean,
reminder.
reflect on the other people in your life that have gone through difficult times. A friend with cancer, a friend that had a miscarriage, a friend that had surgery. Like you might have thought, oh, I feel for them. I don't know what to do. And so we kind of get into like a freeze response because we don't know how to like offer ourselves. If that person would have said, hey, here's something to do, we would have been like, oh, we feel relief because now I can do something and I can feel a sense of purpose rather than a feel of helplessness for my friend. So again, that's the same energy that other people are experiencing. And sometimes that's what we need to reflect on to give ourselves permission to ask for help. But again, don't pad your request, be specific and say you're struggling. Say, I'm struggling. I really could use help with this. This would let people know what the impact of their help would mean for you. Like if I knew that the dogs were taken care of for the next 2 weeks, so I'm not going back and forth to the NICU and my house, that would be a tremendous load off of my stress, right? Things like that. And then the third thing is intentional self-care. So I always let people know when we think of self-care, we think of indulgent stuff. We think of bubble baths and massages. And a lot of us are not doing that when we have a NICU baby, right? There's no time, there's no money,
No, not at
yeah,
all.
absolutely. So there we have to conceptualize self-care in two ways, being preventative and also being a form of treatment. So we often use self-care more as treatment. We wait until we are desperate and then we go, oh, I feel so overwhelmed. I'm so stressed. I need to take care of myself. Right now, in a traumatic situation such as a NICU experience, that's very important. And we will probably get to that point where we're using it as treatment. When we're using self-care as treatment, we are focusing on the pain points in specific areas. Just like when we go into a hospital with a physical complaint, they're treating the symptoms, the presenting issue, right? So we actually have to to focus on the presenting issue. But we also can't neglect preventative self-care. And preventative self-care is actually kind of thinking about the vulnerabilities we have. What makes me more vulnerable to stress and anxiety? Is it sleep? Is it nutrition and hydration? A lot of times it's basic needs, right? One thing that I have a weird vulnerability about, but I've always known about it for myself, and I think that it's always made me a priority. I cannot focus or feel grounded if my lips are dry. It just like it just bothers the crap out of me. I always have chapstick everywhere I go. I probably have 5 chapsticks in my house right now, in my car right now, because I cannot go without it, right? For some people, it's hand lotion, right?
I
No
was
one,
just gonna say I'm a hand lotion person.
yes, I was
Yes.
gonna say, for a lot of
Yes.
people, it's either hands, it's either they need an emotional support chapstick, an emotional support hand cream, or an emotional support water bottle,
Yeah.
right?
Just so we can't be dry. We just can't be dry.
Yeah, you just can't. You can't focus. You're just
No.
bothered, right? So even kind of thinking like, what are my vulnerability factors? Is it when I'm sleep deprived? And this was for me, when I'm sleep deprived, I will kind of just completely decompensate. So sleep was something that was much more important to me than nutrition. I can kind of handle if I go long without a meal. It's not healthy, but if I have to, I do, and I don't. My husband is the one. We actually like say like, how long has it been? You're getting a little snobby or a little crabby with me. Like,
Oh,
how long has it
hangry.
been?
That's what I
Yeah, a
get.
little
Yes.
hangry. You're getting hangry. Like that's my husband's vulnerability. So that was
Mhm.
always a priority for him, is like, I need to know where our next meal's coming from, because
Mhm.
that reduces my vulnerability to stress. Sometimes when we are sick, some people really don't do well with being sick. They feel very helpless when they're sick. Just understanding what are my physical and emotional vulnerabilities. For a lot of people there, it's also important to maybe be aware in a NICU setting of the sensory overwhelm, the lights, the sounds, the amount of people. If you're an introvert and you're in the NICU all day long, it's a little overwhelming. You're sharing a room most of the time with other families. You have constant interaction with people. So being able to give yourself permission to say, I need to protect my introvert energy. I need to give myself a break from the NICU for a few hours, even if I'm just sitting in a room off of the NICU, or I'm going to pump and I just need to be in a room alone, knowing that that's an important way to protect your energy too. So you should kind of always be thinking about 2 questions. What are my needs now? That's the treatment self-care. And what will protect my needs later? And that's the preventative self-care. So kind of answering those questions for yourself. I actually make like a needs list, a needs menu for my clients, because a lot of times when we're in that frozen response of like, I'm so overwhelmed, nobody knows what they need. They have no idea. So it's sometimes important to like make your own list. Do I need an escape? Do I need comfort? Do I need hydration? Do I need rest? Do I need laughter and fun? Um, just making a list of all those things and having it maybe on a little sticky note or in a journal. And then that way, when you're like frozen and you're like, I don't know what I need, you go to that and then
Mhm.
you start there. And that's a
That's
good starting point.
perfect. I was going to ask that too when you talked about utilizing your support system and
Yeah.
finding the people that excel in certain areas to support you. And so it's nice to be able, if you can take, a step back and think of those individuals and write down who's good at what or what your needs are, that
Yes.
you can plug people in when they ask.
Yes.
Um, you know,
Mhm.
so that you
Yep.
have that list. That's great.
Yeah, I think they're like the three top supports that I kind of break down in my mind is informational support.
Mhm.
Who's the best person to go to for information? So you know when you're in the NICU who's going to go above and beyond in terms of the nurses and the doctors. Who's going to give you a good solid answer? And
Mhm.
if they don't know the answer, who's going to go and actually find the
Find it.
answer for you, right? Then there's practical support. Who's going to help clean your house? Who's going to order groceries for you? Who's really good at like the day-to-day living
Mhm.
activities, right? And then there's emotional support. Emotional support is probably the most important one to know who's good at it, because the people that aren't good at it tend to be very bad at it. Like so much so that they sometimes make you feel worse, right?
Oh no,
So
yes.
we hear so, and it's well intentioned. It's just that people haven't learned the right way to support people, right? So
Mhm.
what do we hear when we're in the NICU? Well, as long as the baby's okay, you should be okay. You're going to be fine,
Yeah.
right? Not like, oh, you had a really traumatic birth and it's okay to be upset about it, even though you can be grateful that the baby's okay, but you can be really angry that this is how your birth
This
went.
is how it went. Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
But we have a lot of people that well-intentioned like to just kind of push our feelings away. So we
Mhm.
need to be very intentional about who we open up with and are vulnerable with, people that actually see and validate our emotions, not are trying to fix our emotions, right?
Yep,
Yeah. And
absolutely.
that's why Project NICU and the support group and Rochelle and all those support group leaders are so amazing, because they you
Mhm.
know that they won't do that, right?
Exactly.
So
Yes.
yeah.
You have the space. We say, come as you are with whatever you're carrying. We'll take it
Yes.
all.
Yeah, I love that. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So just to reiterate, those three things are the emotional acceptance,
Yes. Feel your
you
feelings rather than
feel your
cover them up.
feelings. Yes.
Yep.
Utilize your support system, finding
Mm,
out who excels where, and then
yep.
practicing intentional self-care.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
Prevention and treatment, and
and
when you
treatment.
need which, right?
Perfect. That's
Absolutely.
perfect.
Thank you so much for
Awesome.
having me.
Oh my gosh, Rachel, thank you so much. This is such a great addition to our NICU Mental Health Awareness Week, and we are just beyond honored that you share this space with us and you support this community so well. So thank you very much.
And thank you for all you do for this community. It's been so awesome to see how much this organization has grown and done for families all over the country.
Thank you.
I've been watching Project NICU for years now, and it's just like come so far. It's awesome. It's amazing.
Well, it's been a journey, but it's been very fulfilling for all of us that are a part of it. So thank you very much.
Thank you.